Imagine waking up one day to a sky that's no longer blue. Instead, it's choked with a thick yellow haze, and the air burns your lungs with every breath. Huge, unfamiliar metal birds scream overhead, tearing apart the landscape you call home. This isn't a nightmare. This was the reality for the people of Nauru, a tiny island in the Pacific. Once a paradise, it was stripped bare for its phosphate deposits, leaving behind a barren wasteland and a broken community. Its story is a haunting echo of what we saw in the movie Avatar, a warning of what happens when greed outweighs respect for life. So let's ask the tough question. If we found a real-life Pandora, would we be the heroes or the villains? The movie painted a clear picture of good versus evil. The Na'vi were noble, connected to their world, while the humans were ruthless invaders, driven by profit. But reality is rarely so black and white. If humanity discovered a planet like Pandora, teeming with life and rich in a mineral that could solve Earth's energy crisis, the situation would be incredibly complex. First, let's consider the motivation. In Avatar, the mineral was unobtainium, a room-temperature superconductor worth trillions. It was the ultimate prize. In our hypothetical scenario, let's call this mineral something different. Let's say atholite. Imagine atholite could power our entire planet cleanly and efficiently for centuries, ending our reliance on fossil fuels, stopping climate change in its tracks, and lifting billions out of poverty. Suddenly, the mission isn't just about corporate greed, it becomes a mission to save humanity. From this perspective, the people sent to Pandora wouldn't see themselves as villains. They'd be pioneers, saviors even. They'd be engineers, scientists, and security personnel who believe they're undertaking the most important task in human history. They'd have families back on a dying Earth, and every ounce of atholite they send back would be a step towards securing a future for their children. The moral high ground would feel, to them, firmly beneath their feet. But then there's the other side of the equation, the native inhabitants. Let's imagine a species just as intelligent and deeply connected to their world as the Na'vi. They have their own culture, their own language, their own spirituality, all intrinsically linked to the ecosystem that the atholite mining would destroy. They wouldn't understand our energy crisis or our dying planet. All they would see are invaders, tearing up their sacred land, poisoning their water, and destroying the very essence of their existence. Initially, contact would likely be cautious. Scientists like Dr. Grace Augustine would lead the way, desperate to understand the native culture and the planet's unique biology. They'd argue for a gentle approach, for diplomacy, for finding a way to coexist. They'd set up research outposts, try to learn the language, and build trust. For a time, it might even seem possible. Perhaps they could negotiate, offering technology or knowledge in exchange for limited mining rights in uninhabited areas. But history tells us a different story. The pressure from Earth would be immense. Every delay, every failed negotiation would be measured in the rising sea levels and catastrophic weather events back home. The corporation or government agency in charge would grow impatient. The military contingent, led by someone like Colonel Cortage, would argue that diplomacy is a waste of time. They'd say, "We have the power to take what we need. Our survival is at stake. Theirs is not our primary concern." This is where the line begins to blur, and where good intentions curdle into something much darker. The first conflict wouldn't be a massive battle. It would be small, a misunderstanding. A group of natives defending a sacred site that happens to be on top of a rich atholite vein. A nervous soldier opens fire. In retaliation, the natives attack a survey team. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. The natives are no longer seen as a people to be understood, but as hostiles.
A threat to the mission, a threat to human lives. Propaganda would flood the communication channels back to Earth. The natives would be portrayed as primitive, violent savages who are senselessly obstructing progress and the salvation of humankind. The public, desperate for a solution to their problems, would likely buy into this narrative. They would support escalating the conflict. "We tried to be peaceful," the leaders would say, "but they gave us no choice." Sound familiar? It's a justification we've seen time and time again throughout human history, from the colonization of the Americas to the exploitation of Nauru. The technology we'd bring to bear would be terrifying. We wouldn't need giant mech suits, necessarily. We'd have drones capable of precision strikes, autonomous robotic bulldozers, and perhaps even biological agents designed to clear vegetation, or worse. The imbalance of power would be staggering. The natives, with their spears and bows, would be fighting a war against a force they couldn't possibly comprehend. Their deep connection to their planet, their Eywa, would be their greatest strength, but also their greatest weakness. They fight to protect the whole, but the invaders can target specific, critical nodes with devastating efficiency. Imagine the psychological toll on the humans involved. The soldiers, conditioned to see the natives as the enemy, would still have moments of doubt. They would see the families they are displacing, the beauty they are destroying. Some might defect, like Jake Sully, horrified by what they've become a part of. But many others would compartmentalize. They'd follow orders, telling themselves it's for the greater good. They are saving their own world, their own families. This justification, this powerful and seductive lie, is how ordinary people commit extraordinary atrocities. The scientists would be heartbroken. They'd watch as the unique ecosystem they came to study is systematically annihilated. Every species that goes extinct, every tree that falls, is a library of priceless information burned to the ground. They would protest, write reports, and plead with their superiors, but their voices would likely be drowned out by the roar of machinery and the demands for more etholite. So, would we be the villains? The terrifying answer is, we wouldn't think we are. We would see ourselves as pragmatic, desperate, and ultimately justified. We would use the language of survival, of necessity, of progress. We'd tell ourselves that we are making a hard choice for the right reasons. The road to villainy is paved with such good intentions. The tragedy of a real-life Pandora invasion isn't just the destruction of another world. It's what it would reveal about ourselves. It would show that when faced with our own extinction, our capacity for empathy can have its limits. Our desire to survive can override our moral compass. We would destroy a paradise to save ourselves from a hell of our own making. The story of Avatar resonates so deeply because it holds up a mirror. The RDA wasn't a horde of cackling monsters. It was a corporation full of people doing their jobs, driven by a goal that, from a certain point of view, made perfect sense. And that's the scariest part. The villain isn't some external evil force. It's a part of us. It's the part that is willing to sacrifice anything and anyone for our own self-interest. The question isn't whether we'd be the villains if we found Pandora. The question is, are we already the villains on our own planet? We are already mining our world unsustainably. We are already displacing populations, human and animal. We are already putting profit and convenience ahead of the long-term health of our only home. The story of Nauru isn't ancient history. It's a continuing process happening all over the globe. Perhaps the real lesson of Avatar isn't about how we would treat an alien race on a distant moon. It's about how we are treating ourselves and our own planet right here, right now. Before we look to the stars for a new world to save us, maybe we need to take a much harder look at how we can save this one. And in that struggle, we have to decide every single day whether we want to be the heroes or the villains of our own story. Thank you for watching. If this video made you think, consider subscribing and joining the conversation in the comments below. What do you think humanity would do? Let us know. Until next time.